Good evening, everybody. Let's make a start. It's 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 20th of September 2022, and I want to welcome those of you who are here and those at home listening via audio to the City of Canning's Ordinary Council meeting for the month of September 2022. My name is Patrick Hall and I'm the Mayor of the City of Canning. Welcome councillors as well, of course. Declarations of opening announcement of visitors and disclaimer at item 1. We acknowledge the Whadjuk people, the traditional custodians of the land, and also pay our respects to elders both past and present. Council meetings are public meetings and any information you provide shall be recorded and may be publicly accessible. The council chamber are not a parliament and parliamentary privilege does not apply. Elected members and staff risk being held personally liable if their comments are defamatory or breach any duty of confidentiality. Statements made during council meetings are solely those of the person making them. Nothing expressed at a council meeting can be attributed to the city unless it is adopted by a resolution of council. The confirmed minutes of a council meeting are the official record of that meeting. Verbatim minutes are not required. Nevertheless, the city publishes a recording of the meeting. Recording of council meetings must not be copied, republished or reproduced without the city's express permission. Can I also ask before we start that everybody here, please, councillors included, make sure your mobiles are please turned off or on silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you very much. Attendance, I'm pleased to report the full council is here. Thank you very much, councillors. There are no apologies at item 2.1. At item 2.2, approved leave of absence. There are no approved leaves of absence. Disclosures of interest, Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've received no disclosures of interest for tonight.
There have been no disclosures of interest. We'll move on to item 4, which are announcements by the presiding member. And I do have an announcement I'd like to make. I'll read that to the meeting. This evening, councillors, and also those at home, the City of Canning and its council wishes to pay its respects on the recent passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, who earlier today, Perth time, was laid to rest in St George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. With a portrait of the Queen still sitting beside me or behind me on the wall of this council chamber, it really does seem a fitting place to do so. We pay tribute to a dignified life of purpose and unswerving commitment, and we express our sincere gratitude to Her Majesty for her dedicated service as monarch, head of the Commonwealth, and as Australia's constitutional head of state for more than 70 years. Her grace and devotion to duty is truly an example to us all. We extend our condolences to the royal family, to the people of the United Kingdom, and also to those here in Australia who are feeling a deep sense of loss. Her Majesty's passing brings to an end the second Elizabethan era and the end of a glorious and historic reign which endured for more than 70 years and is likely never to be repeated. May she rest in peace. In this most difficult of times, we also congratulate King Charles III on his ascension to the throne, and as Australia's constitutional head of state, we wish him every success in fulfilling the hopes and aspirations of the British people and his subjects right across the Commonwealth. And also I look forward to him contributing to a more peaceful world. Thank you, councillors. We move on to reports of delegates without discussion. Do any members wish to present a delegate report this evening? There are none, thank you. We'll move on to public question time. Item 6.1, responses to previous questions taken on notices. Responses to questions taken on notice will be noted in the minutes, and questions for the public at item 6.2. I open public question time now, the time being 6:05 p.m. The time set aside for public question time is 15 minutes, which may be extended if necessary. For recording purposes, please state your name and address and then proceed to ask your questions. If an answer cannot be provided at tonight's meeting, the question will be taken on notice and an answer will be provided at the next ordinary council meeting. In accordance with policy AD02, members of the public who have registered their questions with the City's administration shall be called upon in the order in which registrations were received. Written questions will precede verbal questions. The City has received questions from Mr Sarker, Mr Clayton and Mr Aldridge separately. Mr Sarker, did you wish to come forward and ask your questions? I'll just ask you to introduce yourself to the meeting with your name and address. Thank you.
Yep. My name is Shubhajit Sarkar. I live in Gibb Street, East Kennington, WA6107. My first question, how many permanent ongoing staff does the city have, and how many staff are on casual or temporary or specified term or in other forms of contractual or insecure employment, including short-term engagement contractors? What is the salary expenditure split between permanent ongoing staff members and other forms of employment?
I'll ask Mr Stephen Kane, the Director of Corporate and Commercial, to respond. Thank you, Mr Kane.
Thank you, through the Mayor and through the Chair. The city's budget of staffing is 592 full-time employee equivalents. Currently we have 486 FTE, comprising of both temporary and permanent staff, 293 casual employees, which are the equivalent of 75 FTE. We're also in active recruitment for 40 staff, which includes casuals, of which 30 positions are nearing completion of the recruitment process. The monthly financial report details expenditure on employee cost. This category includes all expenditure on full, part-time and casual employees. Where the city employs staff from labour hire firms to fill short-term vacancies, this cost is incurred under material and contracts. With unemployment rates at historic lows, the process of recruiting staff vacancies continues to take longer, leading to an overall under-expenditure on employee costs than had been budgeted.
Thank you. Next question, Mr Sarkar.
How many projects went over budget in the last 5 years, and how much money did they go over by, including the Webb Street roadworks, which went almost $500,000 over budget?
Mr Kane.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the Chair, the city's monthly financial report details where there are variations to budget items in excess of the council's adopted materiality threshold, set at variations exceeding $50,000. Noting that over the past 5 years, the city will have completed more than 3,000 capital projects, it is not realistic to provide detailed commentary in response to this question on a project-by-project basis. The information being sought is available in the monthly reports, the mid-year budget review, the annual carry-forward budget amendment, and the city's annual reports. While there are some projects that exceed their initial budget allocation, the city's process for approving variations ensures ongoing oversight and approval by council. At an aggregate level, the city has not exceeded its capital works budgeting financing in any of the past 5 years.
Thank you. Final question, Mr Sarkar.
Given that around $70,000 are allocated for the mayoral dinner, the majority of which presumably will not be spent courtesy of sponsorship and ticket sales, why is the council reluctant to use $50,000 from it for our democracy and hold a by-election for Bellier Ward? Given that in the next 1 year, many important decisions will be taken, including the ward boundary review on the agenda today, which will have a lot of impact in all scenarios on the people of Bellier Ward, don't they deserve all 2 of their representatives to be present during those discussions and beyond? And similarly, don't the people of Canning deserve a full council?
Mr Kane.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Item 0C-006-22 on tonight's agenda deals with the city's intent to conduct an extraordinary election for the vacancy in the Bellier Ward. Noting that Councillor Holland had only recently tendered his resignation, the timeline outlined in the report is the shortest time that a Local Government Act provides for the conduct of an election. As a vacancy was not known at the time of the budget adoption, a budget amendment is required to fund conduct of the ballot by the WAEC.
Thank you, Mr Sarkar. But just on that, there's no reluctance by this council to hold a by-election. We're bound to by the legislation.
Yeah,
but we're only given days' notice of the resignation. It's not like we had 3 months' notice. We're given days' notice. So now we're bound to actually do a budget, change our budget to try to find $50,000 or something like that. That's the cost of it, to hold a by-election. And so council will be considering that matter this evening. But it's just part and parcel of being a local government. Yes, we can fully function as a council with 10 members. We really don't need to have 11. You make some valid points, but we're not reluctant to deal with it. We just think that at the moment in this current climate, if there's an opportunity for a council not to hold a by-election if it doesn't have good reason to do so, the saving of $50,000 could possibly be better placed in the community somewhere, and that would be probably something that might be raised later by council, but the matter will be discussed later this evening. So
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. I was just under that impression from the news article I read in part now, so I wanted to clarify it.
Don't believe everything you read.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We have a question here from Mr. Clayton, who's not with us this evening. It says that there's no address supplied, but he lives a resident of Ross Moyne. The question is, what potential impact will the ward boundary change have on the upcoming Beelia ward by-election? Can it be cited as a reason to not hold the by-election? And why wasn't it in the agenda briefing last briefing and only presented today on the first meeting with one councillor position and Beelia ward vacant? Sorry, that doesn't make a lot of sense. The question has been adequately addressed previously by Mr. Kane in relation to the reason why it was only presented today. Mr. Zoyser, did you want to provide an additional response to that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The additional response to that would be that the potential ward boundary change will have no impact on the Beelia ward election, as the extraordinary election and the boundary review are governed by legislation and are independent of each other. Councillor Holland provided his resignation after the agenda briefing had been published. The inclusion of this matter in the OCM agenda was the earliest possible time the city could bring a report to council.
Thank you. And for the record, Mr. Zoyser is the General Counsel and Manager of Governance for the City of Canning. We have questions here from Mr. Richard Aldridge have been submitted in writing. Mr. Aldridge is not present. Question one, besides tickets bought for the city, how many tickets have been sold for the Mayor's charity dinner so far? I'll ask Mr. Michael Littleton, the CEO, to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and certainly thank you for the question. The industry response to the Mayor's charity dinner has been exceptional. The city has not purchased any tickets to date, although it has committed to purchasing up to 100 tickets if necessary. Current ticket sales sit at 87, with commitments of a further 60 received, which is extremely encouraging, given invites from both Good Sammys and ourselves have only recently been distributed. Given the interest, the event is sure to be well attended, with a great outcome being delivered for Good Sammys.
Thank you, CEO, and I invite Mr. Aldridge to purchase a ticket if he is able to do so. That would be a good outcome. Question two is, could approval of OC 005 of 22 by Council tonight in any way delay the ordinary election in Beelia, which if, we're talking about the by-election that was discussed earlier tonight, which if approved tonight as recommended will be on the 9th of December 2022. Mr. Littleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, the extraordinary election and boundary review are governed by legislation and are independent of each other.
Thank you. Mr. Aldridge's final question. What is the policy number / reference for the Code of Conduct regulations for City of Canning staff / administrators, or don't we have one? I think he means administration rather than administrators. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In accordance with section 5.51A of the Local Government Act, the CEO is responsible for the Code of Conduct for employees. This document is currently under review and will be made available once finalised.
Thank you. If there's no other member of the public wishing to ask a question, we will close public question time. Thank you. We'll close public question time. It's now 6:15 p.m. Thank you. We move to item 7, which is confirmation of minutes. This is confirmation of minutes for the ordinary council meeting held on the 16th of August in 2022. Councillors, the recommendation is on page 2 of tonight's agenda and is also on screen. Can I have a mover, please, for that matter? Thank you. Councillor Bain, a seconder. Deputy Mayor, thank you. We'll put the matter to the vote.
The motion to confirm the minutes from the August OCM has been carried unanimously with all 10 in favour.
Thank you, Governance. We move to item 8, which is a receiving of petitions, presentations and deputations. There are no petitions, no presentations and no deputations this evening. At item 9, application for leave, there have been no requests or applications for leave of absence. At item 10, questions by members of which due notice has been given, there are none. At item 11, items brought forward for the convenience of those in the public, there are also none this evening. Reports of committee meetings at item 12.1. The report of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 14th of September 2022 is the title of that first report. The committee's recommendation is on page 3 of tonight's agenda and is also on screen. Can I have a mover, please, for the committee's recommendation? I'll move it from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Spencer-Teo. Councillors, I commend you to accept the committee's recommendation as appears on page 3 of the agenda. I have nothing further to add. Councillor Spencer-Teo, have you got anything further to add?
No, nothing further. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Anything else, councillors? Any further questions? None. Thank you. We'll put the matter to the vote.
The motion to receive the ARC minutes and recommendations has been carried unanimously with all 10 in favour.
Thank you, Governors. The next report is item 13 on the agenda. It's item 13.1 for the Office of the CEO, Michael Littleton. The report is OC 005 of 22, an initiation of ward boundary review. That's the title of that report. The Office's recommendation is contained on page 5 of the agenda and is on screen. Can I have a mover, please, for that matter? Councillor Sarah Sabiri. Thank you, Councillor Sabiri. A seconder. Councillor Jessie Jacobs. Councillor Sabiri.
I just support the officer recommendation. I had a look and I think either options, 2 or 3 of the discussion paper are reasonable outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Sabiri. Councillor Jacobs, you got anything you'd like to add?
Just quickly. I know it's coming up for 2023, but 2023 is nearly here anyway, so I can't see I can't see saying no now to say yes next year. And I do note that there's an imbalanced ratio of electors per councillor per ward, as per point 3, page 7. So I don't want to foreshadow what the outcome is, but I think it'd be good to look at and we'll take it from there. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jacobs. Anything further? Any other councillor wish to speak or ask a question? Councillor Bain, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in regard to the discussion paper, for the option 1, no wards, there's advantages and disadvantages provided, but not for the other options. I was just wondering what was the rationale behind that? Thank you.
CEO, Mr Littleton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I might just ask either Mr Soiser or Ms Cornish to provide some comments in response.
Mr Soiser? We'll take the question on notice, Councillor. Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Spencer-Teo?
I'm just wanting some clarity on item 4, the results of the community consultation. Exactly, are we just going to be inviting submissions or are we going to have like a Your Say page where we ask questions and invite answers?
Mr Soiser?
Ms Cornish.
Ms Cornish?
Thank you, through the Mayor. We will work with our community engagement and our comms team to identify what the suitable arrangements are for asking for public consultation. So that hasn't been defined as yet, but we'll certainly be looking at the widest avenues that we can to ensure that the discussion paper and the opportunity for all the public to make a submission is available to them.
And that will be done in-house, so there'll be no additional budget allocation for that process?
No, you're right, and I think we're off there.
Yes, that is my understanding at present, but I said that will be some consultation with our comms teams.
I think the CEO confirmed that. I saw the CEO's confirming that. There won't be any further budget allocation other than what has already been put into the report. Anything further, councillors, before we put the matter to the vote? Thank you. Without anyone speaking against the matter, we'll put the matter to the vote. Thank you.
Motion OC-00522 has been carried unanimously with all 10 in favour. Thank you.
Thank you, Governors. We move on to OC 006 of 22, the title of the report being 2022 Local Government Extraordinary Election dash vacancy in Belia Ward. The officer's recommendation appears on page 13 of tonight's agenda and is also on screen. And I note, councillors, that an absolute majority is required for this item. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Jacobs, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Sabiri. Councillor Jacobs.
It's just got to be done. And the WAEC are the people that do it. So, yeah, don't want to spend the money, but don't have a choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sabiri.
Support officer recommendation.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything to add or a question? Thank you, councillors. We'll put the matter to the vote.
Motion OC-00622 has been carried by absolute majority with all 10 in favour. Thank you.
Thank you, Governors. We move to item 13.2 on tonight's agenda, the responsible officer being Mr Stephen Kane, the Director of Canning Corporate and Commercial. It's CC 037 of 22, the title of the report being Review of Policy CM 106, Strategic Management of Property Assets. The officer's recommendation is contained in page 21 of the agenda tonight and is also on screen. Thank you, Governance. Can I have a mover, please, for that item? Councillor Spencer Teo, seconder. Councillor Bain, thank you. Councillor Spencer Teo.
I have nothing to say other than I support the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bain.
I support the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything to add? Councillor Sweeney.
Yes, I'll be speaking against the motion, and I've brought this up before, so it's probably going to come as no surprise to anyone. But the main objective, as I see it in the policy statement, is that it seeks to promote accountable and transparent decision-making processes. So I've never been a fan when the city sells off its land holdings through a private treaty process. I think it attracts the wrong focus. Selling the ratepayers' property should be done through a public auction, which provides ratepayers the most accountable and transparent process. Public auction provides the competitive environment. It's open, it's transparent, and it's fully accountable because potential buyers are publicly bidding for the property. On the other hand, private treaty is exclusive with a particular buyer. It's a private negotiation, one-on-one behind closed doors. And I feel that when something is private, it's the perception of the community that something is untoward. Ratepayers also tell me that unless the sale process is fully transparent, it is suspicious. And there are plenty of examples where councils have come unstuck in inquiries and royal commissions when they decide to sell land through a private treaty process because of conflict of interest, sponsorship deals, and subdivisions. Also, private treaty, the valuation reports provided to councillors in the past from licensed qualified valuers have not been up to a professional standard. They have been incorrect, misleading, and contained false information. These are facts. Furthermore, a requirement of the private treaty process is to place a sign up on the property we're going to advertise to sell. For some reason, this didn't happen when the city recently sold a block of land in Canning Vale. So there's another question mark here for me in regards to the private treaty process. We talk about valuations. Well, the city should be getting a minimum of 2 valuations to determine the market value of any property, not one as stated in the policy. The policy also stipulates that once the value is determined, it should be considered relevant for 12 months. Well, I can't agree to this either. The property market is always volatile and dependent on a number of critical factors that see the property values fluctuate every month. So for me, this proposal needs to change as well in terms of looking at the volatility of the market. Finally, the city should be selling its assets with the main focus of achieving the best outcome for ratepayers. Selling land by privately negotiating a deal with one buyer doesn't do this. The ratepayers are telling me they want to see full transparency in a public competitive process through public auction when it comes to selling their land. So at this stage, things do need to change for me to agree to this policy. So at this stage, I won't be agreeing to this proposal.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on the matter before we ask Councillor Amanda Spencer-Teo to close? Thank you, councillors. Councillor Spencer-Teo, it's at your election whether you wish to rebut or close. I'll give you the opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a few things. This policy actually doesn't stipulate that we only sell properties via private treaty. In fact, point 7 says that council may endorse the divestment of land assets owned with options A, private, B, public auction, or C, public tender. Ultimately, the final decision rests with this council. As we have experienced in the past, we have determined what offers we accept and what offers we don't, and what methods of sale we accept. I recall one that was a private treaty sale and this council did not endorse. So I'm a little bit confused as to why you would throw the policy out. At the end of the day, we make the decisions as we go. The policy is just a guide. On the comment of these valuations, I hear that's going around quite a bit. As Director Kane mentioned at the AB, these valuations are not real estate agent estimates of these properties. These are licensed valuers which come at a cost to the city of $12,000 each, up to $12,000. So I find it rather ironic that we want to cut costs and not increase rates, but in the same hand we want to spend more of our ratepayers' money to pretty much get the same information but just from a different company. So at the end of the day, councillors, like I said, this is a policy, it's a guide, it's not the be-all and end-all. If we accept this, we are certainly not saying that every sale must be by private treaty, so I hope you keep that in mind when making your decisions this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's put the matter to the vote. Thank you. You can ask a question, councillor. Yep. Just use your microphone.
Yes, thank you. Just a question for the...
Sorry, you can't ask a question on the matter. We've actually closed debate on it. You can't ask a question either.
I'll have to put my hand up a lot quicker, won't I?
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, councillors. We'll put the matter to the vote.
Motion CC-037-22 has been carried with 9 in favour, with Councillor Sweeney voting against the motion.
Thank you, councillors. We move to item CC 038 of 22, the proposed extension of lease arrangements for the Wildback Golf Course in Parkwood. The officer's recommendation is contained on page 44 of tonight's agenda and there it is. It's also on the screen. Thank you, governance. Can I have a mover for that item, please? That's Councillor Jacobs. Thank you, Councillor Jacobs. A seconder? Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kunza. Councillor Jacobs.
Yeah, I support this motion. I think it'll be not only a good little bit of income for us while we work out what we want to do. Even if we didn't want to extend the lease now, the wheels of government probably need about a year to work out what we're going to do. So I think the arrangements worked well for the last pretty much 20 years. It's a known. I think a year's is good for us, and I know that it's going to go up with CPI, so it makes good economic sense. So I support this, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Ben Kunza.
Yes, I support the officer recommendation and gives the city time to look at financially prudent and appropriate steps forward for the Wellback site, and also appreciate Mr Hopkins for taking on agreeing to take it on another year.
Thank you. And anyone else wish to speak? Thank you, councillors. We'll put the matter to the vote.
Motion CC-038-22 has been carried unanimously with all 10 in favour.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is CC 039 of 22, the title of the report being Monthly Financial Report for August 2022. The recommendation is on page 54 of tonight's agenda and is also now on screen. Can I have a mover for that item, please? I'll move that from the chair. Seconder? Councillor Amanda Spencer-Teo, thank you. Councillors, I have nothing to add other than I commend you to accept the recommendation of the City in relation to receiving those reports. Councillor Spencer-Teo, anything to add?
Nothing to add, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Anyone else wish to speak on the item? Thank you, councillors. We'll put the matter to the vote.
Motion CC-039-22 has been carried unanimously with all 10 in favour.
Thank you. At item 13.3, the responsible officer for reports from the Directorate is Mr Graham Bride, the Director of Canning Development. There are no reports for that Directorate this evening. At item 13.4, the responsible officer being Mr Warren Bowe, the Director of Canning Environment, the first report being EN 021 of 22, the title of the report being Road Safety Inspection, intersection of Manning Road and Bungaree Road in Wilson. The officer's recommendation is on screen. It also on page 92 of tonight's agenda. The mover of the item will be Councillor Bain. Thank you, Councillor Bain. And I understand you'll want to make an amendment in a moment, and a seconder. Seconder for the item, Councillor Sabiri. Thank you for seconding the item. Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank the Wilson Residents and Ratepayers Association for bringing this issue and their concerns to the attention of Council, and also thank the City as well for their prompt response and seeking and also employing the road safety inspection as well. That's much appreciated. As you mentioned, I'd just like to move a minor amendment, if that's possible, please.
Yes, we can. I'll just get that put up on the screen right now. The amendment is... Councillor Bain, I'll get you to read that. It's on the screen at the moment. For the sake of those at home, I'll just read it. The amendment by Councillor Bain says that there will be a new Part 3. Currently there are Parts 1 and 2. The officer's recommendation, the new Part 3 would read that authorises the Mayor to write to Ms Hannah Beasley, MLA, Member for Victoria Park, requesting support and funding to upgrade the lighting infrastructure along Manning Road near Bungaree Road intersection, full stop. Is that encapsulate the amendment that you wish to put?
That's correct. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. The amendment's been put by Councillor Bain. Can I have a seconder, please, for the... Yes, Councillor Jacobs, a question?
Can we also add the federal member? Because, I mean, what's the point of just writing to the state when the federal person says, well, you didn't ask me?
Councillor Bain, have you considered the federal member or...?
I did consider it, Mr Mayor, but ultimately lighting infrastructure is a state responsibility. Thank you.
For that reason, I accept that. Thank you. Councillor Jacobs, you happy with that explanation? Thank you. Can I have a seconder? You'd like to second the amendment? So we have a seconder for the amendment. So this is just in relation to the amendment. Councillor Bain, did you want to speak to the amendment?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. SJR Civil found during their inspection that the street lighting along Manning Road is inconsistent in terms of luminaire spacing, brightness and colour. They determined that the existing lighting presents a risk that vehicles could fail to quickly observe the road alignment or hazards which may result in crashes. SJR Civil recommended that the infrastructure be upgraded to ensure consistent lighting in accordance with Australian Standard 1158. If funding and support can be found via government sources other than the Black Spot program, it will give the City greater flexibility managing road projects on its priority list, and it may mean the upgrade to the lighting along Manning Road can happen sooner rather than later. Alternative funding sources should be explored to mitigate the safety risks at the intersection and should ensure compliance with Australian standards. Thank you to my fellow elected members for considering this amendment. I hope that it receives your support. Thank you.
Councillor Jacobs, have you got anything you'd like to add just to the amendment?
Look forward to seeing the cheque from the member in the mail. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the record, I support the amendment. I have no issue at all writing to the member, Hannah Beasley, MLA, the member for Victoria Park. Thank you for suggesting it, Councillor Bain. Does anyone else wish to speak on the amendment? Councillor Spencer-Teo.
I just have a question. Didn't we allocate some money towards lighting infrastructure upgrades to LED lighting only recently?
Can I ask Director Warren Bowe just to answer that question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Council made a decision in October last year to move forward with a smart enabled LED changeover across the entire city and to allocate some money in the budget to undertake that project. We're just reviewing the business case for that and intend to progress that with the local government consortium that was also referenced in the council resolution later this year.
So is it safe to say that that's kind of already being done?
Director?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, I don't think it's safe to say it's already been done. What we will do is advocate for an LED changeover to ensure a level of consistency across all lighting infrastructure, including along Manning Road. The timeframes for the delivery of that is contingent on a number of things, including our participation in other state government underground power projects. So I don't think that Councillor Bain's amendment would disaffect our ability to improve lighting across along Manning Road through the LED changeover.
Thank you.
So that would just essentially, if we can get funding from Hannah Bees, it would just bring that portion forward.
Director Bowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, that's what I understand. And
Thank you.
our
Thank you.
intention would not be to pay for those lights twice.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak either for or against? We're only talking about the amendment at this stage. Thank you. No need to rebut. We'll put the matter to the vote. Councillors, just voting on the amendment proposed by Councillor Bain. Thank you.
Amendment to EN-021-22 has been carried unanimously with all 10 in favour. Thank you.
Thank you. The amendment proposed by Councillor Bain has been adopted unanimously. Now becomes part of the substantial motion, new part 3. The substantive motion has been moved by Councillor Bain and seconded by Councillor Sabiri. I don't think it's entirely necessary to speak on the matter again. Councillor Bain, you've already addressed the matter through your previous comments. Councillor Sabiri, did you want to add anything before we put the matter to the vote?
No, nothing to add.
Anyone else want to ask a question or speak either for or against the matter? Councillor Bain will put the matter to the vote. Thank you, councillors.
Substantive motion is amended. EN-021-22 has been carried unanimously with all 10 in favour.
Thank you. For next item is EN 022 of 22. The title of the report being Hossack Park South, Parkwood Sports Lighting, FM 033287. The officer's recommendation is on page 103 of tonight's agenda and is on the screen. Can I have a mover for that item, please? Councillor Sabiri, thank you. Seconder. Councillor Parkinson, thank you. Councillor Sabiri.
I support officer recommendation, nothing to add.
Appreciated, thank you. Councillor Parkinson, have you got anything you'd like to add in support
just
of the item?
a question. Has Greenlight been awarded any previous contracts for lighting replacement?
Director, are we able to answer that query?
Yes, we are, Mr Mayor. They have been awarded previous contracts.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, and I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against the matter? Thank you, councillors. Let's put it to the vote.
Motion EN-022-22 has been carried unanimously with all 10 in favour.
Thank you. We move to item 7.5 on tonight's agenda, the responsible officer being Dr Sarah McQuaid, the Director of Canning Community. The item is CO 012 of 22. The title of the report being Review of Security Incentive Scheme, Terms and Conditions. The officer's recommendation, I will read it, is simply that Council approves the terms and conditions for the City's Security Incentive Scheme, which is attachment 1. The recommendation is on page 111 of tonight's agenda and is also on screen. Can I have a mover, please, for that item? I'll move it from the chair. Seconder, Councillor Amanda Spencer-Teo. Councillors, I speak in favour of the recommendation. A number of us have worked pretty hard on this. We've had a lot of information provided to us by the city. I'm really pleased that they've been listening to some of the commentary by Councillor Singh and others around the terms and conditions, and I think we've made it perhaps an easier process, particularly for our residents, and something that I hope in future years we will be able to add to from a financial point of view and make it a more meaningful project. But right now, as it sits, I'm comfortable with the terms and conditions, and hopefully in coming years we can add some added finance to that. Councillor Amanda Spencer-Teo, anything you'd like to add?
Nothing to add, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Anyone else like to speak either for or against the matter? Councillor Singh?
I would like to ask a question, Mr.
Of
Mayor.
course you can. Yeah, go ahead.
Question is for Director Sarah McQuaid. If adopted tonight, when will this policy go live?
Director McQuaid.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. The terms and conditions will apply immediately, and we'll be looking to launch, open it up for public advertising of the fourth round of the Security Incentive Scheme at the end of October, with assessment to occur sometime during November.
Thank you. Happy with that? Thank you. Councillors, let's put the matter to the vote.
Motion CO-012-22 has been carried unanimously with all 10 in favour.
Thank you. And councillors, we moved to item 14 on the agenda, which is motions of which previous notice has been given. The responsible officer for this report is Mr Warren Bowe, the Director of Canning Environment. We've had a notice of motion put to us this evening by Councillor Bain. Thank you, Councillor Bain. It's NOM 009 of 22, and the title of the report is Funding for the Construction of a New Basketball Half Court at Purley Park in Linwood. The notice of motion reads that Council requests the Chief Executive Officer write to the Minister for Planning seeking approval to access funds, in brackets notionally $40,000, close brackets, from the Town Planning Scheme 23 Public Open Space Trust Fund, in brackets TPS 23, for the purpose of constructing a new basketball half court at Purley Park in Linwood. Councillor Bain will be moving the item. Councillor Bain, thank you. May I have a seconder, please, for the item? Councillor Sarah Sabiri, thank you. Councillor Bain, did you want to speak to the item?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't go into too much detail. I'm sure my fellow councillors have read through the NOM. So essentially this NOM is exactly the same as item CO 00322 presented by the Canning Community Team at the March ACM and unanimously supported by Council at the time. The only difference being the source of funding for the project. The City was recently advised that its application for CSR-FF small grants funding was unsuccessful as it did not meet the criteria. This NOM proposes that the Purley Park half court now be funded using TPS 23 in order that the project can still proceed and in a timeframe acceptable to the community and users. There are currently no suitable grants available, with no guarantee that the Stronger Communities program will be available for an 8th round. TPS 23 was set up for the purposes of enhancing POS in Linwood, which the half court project will do. This is a worthwhile project as identified by the City, which will have immediate community impact and produce positive social, health, operational and costs benefits. Thank you to my fellow elected members for considering this NOM. I hope it receives your approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Councillor Sabiri, anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add. I do have a question though in regards to the location of the court. I guess seeing a lot of news articles, I guess, about noise from basketball courts. I was wondering that if we've consulted the neighbours and if that's something that we've looked into.
Director Bowe, I'll just get you to address that. The question had been asked previously and we've received an answer, but I'll get you to answer
thank you, Mr Mayor. Given that the project is not budgeted for, we haven't undertaken any formal consultation or any further project planning regarding the location. But notionally, we've identified that any subsequent project would need to be moved more central into the reserve and probably more adjacent to the school and away from any residential area, but we would undertake some consultation at that particular point in time if the project was funded.
Councillor Sabiri.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on the matter before we put it to the vote? Councillor Spencer-Teo.
Sorry, I've got a bunch of questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
TPS 23 doesn't just include Linwood and Ferndale as per point 5 of the notice of motion suggests. In fact, in addition to Ferndale and Linwood, TPS 23 are funds collected in lieu of public open space from developments in all of Parkwood and a small section of Riverton. Is that correct?
Director Director Bright.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, that's correct. So there's an attachment map attached to the back of the NOM, which identifies the suburbs involved. So there's a number of suburbs involved in TPS 23.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer-Teo.
With point 17 of the officer's comments, is the officer referring to NOM 1219 presented by Councillor Holland in July, or the officer's report or council resolutions following that NOM being EN 3319?
Director Bowe. Is it paragraph 17 in the report you're referring to?
Well, yeah, that refers
I believe
to...
it was the subsequent resolution made by council later in 2019.
Okay, so it would have been the EN one. But either the notice of motion or the officer's report resolved that a concept plan for Willery Park would be produced, but then in 1718 it says that all of that's on hold because of water court works. Has that concept plan been done?
Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, the concept plan has been done and it was distributed via a memo to elected members in a time when I wasn't in the director's seat, but I can provide that information.
For Willery Park?
Yeah, for Willery Park, yes.
Was that concept plan endorsed by council or just was it sent for information?
No, it was distributed for information.
Okay. So either way, that officer's recommendation or report or council resolution EN 33 hasn't necessarily been delivered though, has it? Because we also haven't planted any trees on there as far as I can see.
Director.
Yes, that's correct, Mr Mayor. It hasn't been delivered. The concept plan hasn't been endorsed and is awaiting some significant investment by Water Corporation before we undertake any work there. There's no budget to progress the work at Willery Park.
Just on that though, can I just ask a question? Would you mind, Councillor? I did ask a question in writing to Mr Johnson some time ago from a resident's query in relation to Willery Park about the planting of trees and was told that that was imminent and would be occurring within 6 weeks. That hasn't occurred? We haven't planted any trees there?
I'm not 100% sure, Mr Mayor. I can speak with Mr Johnson and provide a response to all elected members on the status there. I was merely referring to the concept plan to redevelop Willery Park, not necessarily the tree planting.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spencer-Teo.
So would it be safe to say that at least in part that those resolutions on that council decision haven't actually been actioned?
Can I just ask, what's the relevance of this to the item? I just need to kind of bring
Well,
this
my
back.
concern is that they're in this report. If items 17 and 18 wasn't in here, it would have never... I 100% support the notice of motion, by the way, but my concern is that it's on the record here that someone intends to spend $1.1 million on a dog park being Willery Park, but I can't find... I've gone through everything. I've listened to all the audios of both motions, and I can't see anywhere where council's endorsed a concept plan or allocated any funds. And I certainly wouldn't be supporting $1.1 million being spent on a dog park. So that's my concern, is that if it's not on the record that that is not the case.
Just your question though?
Well, you asked what the relevance was first, so I'm giving you the relevance. But yeah, my question was, shouldn't this item be on the outstanding council resolutions list? Because it isn't, is a question. Director?
I believe that the council resolution, I don't have it in front, either of them in front of me, but was to prepare a concept plan. And I believe there was a resolution at a point in time to allocate money in the budget, not this financial year's budget, but the works haven't been progressed given we don't have current budget and that we don't have any certainty over when the Water Corporation are going to complete their works, and we didn't intend to undertake the redevelopment of the park until those major infrastructure works were done.
Councillor Spencer-Teo, can we try to wind this up?
Yep, I understand that, but it did say that there was going to be significant funding allocated in the 2021 budget for at least the mass tree planting, but just wanted to confirm that that money wasn't allocated and it hasn't been done, and that there's still further council resolution required to progress the concept plan. Is that correct?
I think that's the case. Director?
That is my understanding, Mr Mayor, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak either for or against the item before we put it to the vote? Thank you, councillors. Councillor Bain, we had no one speak against the matter, so there's no need to rebut. We will go ahead and put the matter to the vote. Thank you very much for raising it.
Notice of motion 009-22 has been carried unanimously with all 10 in favour.
Thank you, Governance. We move to item 15 on tonight's agenda, which is urgent business. There is no urgent business to be considered by Council this evening. At item 16, confidential matters. We do have a confidential matter to deal with tonight. Can I have a mover and a seconder that item CO 01322, the title of that item being expression of interest for 10/2022 for lease and operation of Canning Lodge Residential Aged Care Facility. Can I have a mover and a seconder that matter be dealt with behind closed doors in accordance with section 5.23 in brackets 2 of the Local Government Act of 1995? Councillor Jacobs, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Bain, thank you. Councillor Jacobs, you speak in support of moving behind closed doors?
Yes, I support discussing this behind closed doors because it's sensitive. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bain?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I support this matter going behind closed doors. Thank you.
Thank you. Unless we have anyone speaking against the matter, can we put it to the vote? Thank you. We'll put the matter to the vote.
The motion to go behind closed doors has been carried unanimously with all 10 in favour.
Thank you. I'd therefore like to thank the members of the public for their attendance tonight. There's only 2 of you here, I believe. Thank you for coming in this evening, and I may ask that you please leave the chamber in order for the council to consider the confidential matter. Governance, can you please confirm that the live streaming has been paused whilst the confidential item is discussed? Confirm that the live streaming. We'll open the door. Governors, can you confirm that the live streaming of the meeting has please been restarted? It has, thank you. The time is now 7:01 p.m. and the meeting has now been reopened to the public. For the record, no members of the public have re-entered the council chamber. I'll read the officer's recommendation, which has just been endorsed by council behind closed doors. The officer's recommendation was, and which has been adopted, and I'll read it was adopted 9 in favour and 1 against. The officer's recommendation was that council, 1, adopts the recommendations as outlined in paragraph 90 of this report, and 2, upon the implementation and finalisation of all parts of this resolution, this report is no longer considered to be confidential, in brackets excluding confidential attachments 1 and 2, close brackets, and may be made publicly available, full stop. Thank you, councillors. That was the resolution of council. At item 12, closure, there being no further business tonight, I declare the meeting closed at 7:02 p.m. and I thank you all very much for your attendance this evening. Good night. Thank you.